apparently, we're now living in a time where if you tell people that they can't buy soda or candy or processed sugar bombs with taxpayer-funded food benefits, that's now considered some sort of humanitarian crisis.
No sodas. You can't get your coffee creamer. You can't even get ice cream. That's, that's wrong. What am I to do? That's wrong. Somebody needs to do something about this. I know it's affecting everybody. I eat healthy. I love my fruit. I love my sweets too.
So I need you guys to pay attention to this story because it's going to tell you something that's so much bigger than just the welfare state. You're going to learn and glean from this story about what it means when you live an undisciplined life and what happens when, in the name of compassion or humanitarian effort, you allow government assistance to be more about subsidizing bad habits and less about help and survival. So take a look at this clip.
Another story we're following tonight, new restrictions on SNAP benefits are now in effect across Florida. Benefits will no longer cover items like soda, candy, or cookies. More than 160,000 people in Jacksonville rely on the program each month, with benefits averaging about $190 per person. Our Christina Burgess is joining us now, and Christina, limits on what can be purchased, that's raising concerns.
Yeah, that's right, Anthony. For many Jacksonville families, SNAP benefits are essential, but access to healthy, affordable food isn't always easy. With new restrictions on what can be bought, some say it's adding more challenges.
Now I'm being told what I can buy and what I can't buy, and I don't think that's right.
Rhonda Jackson is one of thousands in Jacksonville who rely on SNAP benefits each month. She says the new restrictions are already making grocery shopping more difficult.
I couldn't even get Arizona, V8 juice, or Welch's juice with my food stamps.
Under the new rules, recipients can no longer use benefits to buy soda, energy drinks, candy, and ultra-processed desserts like snack cakes and cookies. The changes went into effect on April 20th. Jackson says confusion at checkout has added to her frustration as both customers and store employees adjust to the changes.
I feel like we should be able to choose, because all food is healthy. It's whether or not you indulge in it.
State officials say the goal is to encourage healthier eating and better align SNAP benefits with nutrition guidelines to combat hunger.
I have seen an uptick in the people that come to the resource center looking for food.
Dr. Eva Hardrick's nonprofit Northside Community Involvement distributes about 15,000 pounds of food each month to Jacksonville families.
They do need to eat healthy and be able to feed a family.
Hardrick says while healthy options are important, getting them isn't always easy. She says transportation challenges and limited grocery store access can make it hard.
And a lot of times they're asking for fresh fruits, but they will take whatever it is that we have at the time. Sometimes I will take from my house and bring to help support some of the things that they're asking for.
And some items that are still allowed for SNAP recipients are sports drinks like Gatorade and Powerade, sparkling water, tea, and certain packaged snacks like granola bars and breakfast pastries.
So y'all heard this lady. She is crashing out because you can't buy no sodas, no coffee, no ice cream, no creamer. And she's like, what is I gonna do? She doesn't know what to do. And I'm like, ma'am, you can just eat food. Like real food, just eat dinner. Like that's what you're supposed to do. So recently, Florida's SNAP law, their new SNAP restrictions went into place a couple of days ago on April 20th. And these restrictions are very clear. You cannot buy soda, energy drinks. You can't buy candy. You can't buy ultra processed, shelf-stable desserts. And the USDA, they approved this waiver, and it's part of a broader 2-year demonstration. They're trying to align their food assistance with better nutritional standards. And so this is not a bad thing. You didn't lose access to food, right? But you did lose access to taxpayer-funded treats. Now, I want you guys to notice what's not being banned. They didn't say that you can't buy food. No, they didn't say that you can't buy meat. They didn't say that you can't buy fruit or vegetables. What they're saying is that you can buy rice and beans and bread and eggs and milk and peanut butter and chicken, high protein stuff. You can even get cereal. But the issue here is that taxpayers should not have to finance your junk food addiction, the high calorie food that's leading to the big backs. We don't want to subsidize your pre-diabetes, your diabetes, your insulin resistance. We don't want to fund any of that. And for some people, when they hear that, that's like the end of civilization. That right there is the problem. Welfare in America, it was supposed to be a safety net. It is supposed to be the thing that's there for you in rarest occasions when you are down on your luck and you need a little help to get you by. It was never designed to be some sort of lifestyle enhancement package. It was never supposed to be a government-sponsored snack aisle. The point was public funding should have never gone toward sugar, processed trash food, like Franken foods, that's what I call them, and the very foods that are helping to drive our obesity epidemic and the diabetes and all of the other chronic disease that is causing our healthcare costs to skyrocket. If you think about it, the vast majority of this country is overweight. Like, y'all, we are big backed. Okay, we are next level chubbed out. And nobody wants to say that out loud. And what's even worse, when you look at Americans and how overweight we are, our poorest among us, we're not starving from a lack of calories. Those people are drowning in cheap, overprocessed, nutrient poor calories. They don't eat nutrient dense foods. They don't even have an appetite for it because the taxpayers have been funding and subsidizing all of their bad food habits. This is how you get the contradiction of modern America. We're told that people are food insecure, but then at the same time, we're watching in real time an epidemic of obesity, metabolic dysfunction, and diabetes. I don't think our rates of diabetes have been this high in all of human history. And you have to ask yourself why. The problem is not always quantity. People are not starving. I see these kids in the hood and 5-year-olds are over 100 pounds. So quantity is not it. We have a quality problem. And so when government assistance is paying for the sugar and the junk, the state is not merely feeding people. It is actually helping finance the bad habits that are not just keeping people unhealthy, but that are keeping our medical system bankrupt. Because the folks with the EBT that are buying the bad food, those are the ones that are typically also on Medicaid. Medicaid is also another form of a government safety net to provide health care for the people who can't afford it. So that means your insulin. That means your knee surgery and your knee replacements. That they're all of the health issues, the high cholesterol, the high blood pressure, all of the pharmaceutical drugs that are needed to help ameliorate the symptoms that come from the food choices. It's all related. And so we were told that if you try to, you want the government's money, but when the government tries to put guardrails and boundaries around the use of that money, the state, like I said, is helping finance the bad habits, and that is backwards. It's backwards, it's foolish, and it's destructive and cruel. Y'all think that having access to an EBT card is the compassionate thing to do for the poor. But real compassion doesn't help people destroy themselves and help them to dig their graves with a knife and a fork. It doesn't make them more comfortable. Real compassion It's not supposed to hand people a card and say, go on ahead, numb yourself with this food that genetically is engineered to make you addicted. If you claim that you love and care and are concerned about these people, you're not going to want them to numb themselves with the same habits that are making them sick. Real compassion would just tell them the truth and say, listen, yes, you need food. No child should be starving and hungry, and no American should be without the basics. But food assistance should not prioritize food addiction. It should prioritize nourishment. Do you understand the difference? Now, I want to be fair. Because there are critics that are already out here crying that this action is so stigmatizing and it's unfair and it's going to destabilize already destabilized communities. But here's the issue. If you want government money, every program has standards and requirements and boundaries. Every benefit that you receive has rules. You can't use government housing to get a luxury penthouse. It doesn't work that way. And you can't use Medicaid to get your breast done or a BBL or any other, well, I was going to say any other unrelated medical necessity, but I am told that Medicaid has been used to kill babies through abortion and to pay for gender affirming care. That happened. So there's levels to this. I don't agree with that. How it should work, though, is you should not be able to use EBT to load up on candy and soda and processed desserts and then act shocked when people say, no, the public is not paying for that. You can go find you some money and buy that on your own. That's not oppressive. That's called having a standard and then holding you to that standard. Now, the bigger issue in all of this is that America, because our worldview has been skewed and it's been infiltrated and subverted by Marxism and socialism and communism, that this actually is more of a cultural problem as well as a spiritual problem. You have several generations of people who've been raised to think that dependence is normal. They literally ask, what is the government going to do for me? Whereas in years past, it was always understood that you don't want the government to do anything for you. What you want is for the government to get out of your way, right? But now our worldview has been skewed and people believe that somebody else is supposed to cover the tab. And when you have desire like that, it automatically creates entitlement. It creates an environment where people believe that if they want it, that they should get it. And if taxpayers don't pay for your cravings, then somehow the system is now labeled as evil. That's perverted. That is backwards. No, the system is not evil. The system became evil when it stopped requiring self-government, personal responsibility, when it started rewarding your appetite with no accountability, right? The system became evil when it started training people to believe that if you have some basic discipline, that somehow that's discriminatory. Listen to the language in that clip from that woman. She was downright just upset. This is not a woman that's talking like someone who lost access to nutrition. She sounded really entitled, talking like somebody that lost access to all of her convenience comfort foods and all of the things she likes to indulge in, right? That's a completely different conversation. And that is why this issue matters, because once government assistance starts crossing the line from necessity into your preferences, it starts forming people morally. And then that's when you get the generations of entitled people who have the nerve to say, oh, you will have my EBT and I'm not going to comply to your work requirement and I'm going to buy it to get what I want, to eat what I want in the house that you pay for, and I dare you to say something about it. This is what happens. This is teaching people to see every want that they believe they have is their right. This is teaching them that if you're uncomfortable, The state should be the one to step in and solve that for you. What it's actually teaching them is that self-control is optional, just as long as the government keeps swiping that card and making sure that that direct deposit of your EBT funds hits on the day it is supposed to at the time that they said it would. This is just bad policy. This is a form of government discipleship that should not be. Biblically, I believe this is highlighting something much, much deeper, because when we look in scripture, we're taught to not be ruled by our appetites. In Philippians 3, the Apostle Paul talks about people whose God is their belly. It's exactly the same kind of culture that we're producing here in this country. Every time, every impulse has to be publicly subsidized, right? Self-control is one of the fruit of the Spirit. And hear me clearly. Obviously, everybody's not a believer. Those indwelt with the Spirit of God display the fruit of the Spirit. However, there are some basic biblical truths that we can glean, such as our position about being disciplined, having a healthy doctrine of work, exhibiting self-restraint. Right? Those are things that we should be pushing. But now we've built a culture where telling adults you can't use public benefits for junk food. And now that's being treated like it's some sort of civil rights violation. Like that woman said, somebody need to do something about this. She ready to stage a protest, a sit-in, a walkout. She's ready to get to work. This is crazy. This is actually one of the few sane things that government has done in a long time. They are putting up roadblocks and boundaries to say enough is enough. I think these restrictions are a good thing, and I think it exposes the real issue behind our mindset of entitlement and government dependence. Because when you watch a person melt down over soda and people start panicking over candy, and when they act like ice cream is an essential food group, you know that we are really revealing just how addicted our culture has become to excess, and not just food excess, but excess dependency and entitlement and excess comfort to their own detriment. Y'all, we don't just have a food problem. We have a formation problem. We've trained people to resent any sort of boundaries or accountability that forces them to choose and function like adults. And I know somebody's going to say, well, April, well, yeah, rich people can buy junk food whenever they want. Yes, with their own money. They should look, if you are rich and you want to buy ho-hos and cupcakes and eat it until you eat yourself into a diabetic coma. That is your right. But the point is, you're doing that with your own money. The question is not whether junk food should exist. The question is whether should taxpayers be required to subsidize the junk food through a program that is meant to satisfy your nutritional needs and to alleviate hunger. Florida has said no. In fact, Florida has said heck to the no. And honestly, that answer is the right answer, and it makes common sense. The state's own program is saying that the goal of SNAP is to align with more nourishing foods. And if USDA approved the waiver on those terms, then that is a good thing. That's a good thing. It's no different. Have you ever seen like a homeless person come up to you and they tell you how hungry they are and that they just need $5 or $10 or whatever you can spare to get them something to eat? And then you go and you like, hey, come take a walk with me. We're going to go over here, and you take them inside a restaurant and you ask them what they want to eat. And all of a sudden they start stuttering because they're like, no. I don't really eat here. I want, what I want is not on the menu. And you like, but I thought you was hungry. You said you hadn't eaten in a couple of days and you need some money to get you a bite to eat. I'm actually giving you and solving the problem and giving you the very thing that you asked for. You've had that happen to you. That is demonstrating and proving to you that it was never really about the hunger. They don't want the food. They want the money. In the same way, Folks who claim that they need this money for their actual survival, if it was about their actual survival, they'd, one, be grateful. They'd have a little sense of gratitude. And two, they would understand that if I want this money and my survival is dependent on it, then I am going to nourish myself and get foods that are sometimes cost prohibitive, like milk and eggs and meat and things like that. But no, we're not getting junk food. We're going to focus on nutrient dense foods, high protein items, and not all of these refined, ultra processed carbohydrates that are leading to all of this insulin dependence and got all of y'all on diabetes medication. Right. So I'm just saying, when you change government, or you put government restrictions in place like this, public assistance is going to be more ordered toward actual need, not every craving, not every vice, not every emotional support snack that makes you feel better at night. And so when people know that their money can only be used on necessities, they're going to absolutely think harder about how they spend that money and what to buy. Because when you put restraints in place, restraints shape behavior. That is true whether it's parenting or budgeting or in discipleship. That is true in so many different areas of life, and it is also true in welfare policy. So my takeaway is very simple. If you need help feeding your family, I have absolute compassion for that. I do. And I believe that we need to have some sort of social safety net to help you in those circumstances. But food assistance should help people eat actual food, nutritious food, not for you to indulge, not for you to spiral, not for you to medicate yourself with sugar on the taxpayer's dime. We're tired of paying for it. And the fact that so many people are furious over losing access to junk food tells you just how deep the welfare state has blurred the lines between assistance and entitlement. So no, you're not being persecuted because the government won't buy your soda. But you are being confronted with a boundary, and I get it. You don't like that. And when you have a culture that's addicted to appetite, every boundary is going to feel incredibly oppressive. But this is not oppression. This is simply a reminder that welfare should be about survival, not snack attacks. And maybe, just maybe, if more policies had a little backbone like this and some more restrictions, we wouldn't be subsidizing the very habits that are making people sick in the first place. So I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Do you think that Florida implementing these restrictions on SNAP benefits and saying you can't buy cookies, cakes, and Ho-Hos and Little Debbie's and all the processed shelf-stable desserts that you've come to like and enjoy, you got to spend that money on actual food? Or do you believe, April, this is racist? It is stigmatizing folks on EBT, and it is racist, and we need to stage a protest. And it's funny. It's funny how people say it's racist when I've been in Walmart and listen, I've been in Walmart and I see individuals of all ethnicities with the carts piled high, full of junk. And it ain't just black folks. It be white folks too, with they 4 or 5 kids, and all the kids got a big back, and they chubby and well. Listen, I'm just saying, a whole little family full of porkers, and you be like, there's my money, my tax dollars at work. So anyway, I'm curious to know what you think. Whatever it is you guys think, leave me your comments down in the box below. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and peace.